I thought my boyfriend was just close with his cousin, then I found the old emails. They weren't related, it was something much, much worse. He said they were just close. Like siblings, that's how he put it. She's basically family. At the time, I believed him, or maybe I just wanted to, because my Liam was warm, steady, and effortlessly kind. The kind of man who rubbed the steering wheel before long drives, always tipped baristas in cash, and kissed the top of my head without thinking. We moved in together 6 months after we met. Not because we rushed, but because it felt like home. Natural, quiet, right. The first time I met Jenna, I was putting a bottle of wine in the fridge. Liam had invited a few friends over, nothing formal, just drinks and charcuterie and someone's Spotify playlist looping in the background. I'd heard about her a few times before that night. My cousin Jenna, he'd say, usually followed by a smile or a story that ended with them getting into trouble as kids. "We're tight," he said once. "She's like the sister I never had." When she walked in, she hugged him first. A long hug, not inappropriate, not dramatic, just long enough for me to clock it. She was beautiful in that clean, unbothered way. Gold hoops, minimal makeup, vintage jeans that actually looked lived in. When she turned to me, she smiled wide. "You must be Sophie," she said. "He's told me so much." Her voice was kind, her eyes weren't. They had a rhythm. That's what hit me first. Not flirtation, not anything overt, just a rhythm. Like a song they'd been humming together since childhood and never had to explain. She'd refill his glass without asking. He'd reach for her phone to change the song without checking. They laughed in sync, moved in sync. Even their food orders were mirror images, both no olives, both extra mustard, both Diet Coke with lime. I tried not to let it bother me, I really did. Liam noticed, that's the thing, he always noticed. Later that night, when the guests had left and we were cleaning up in the kitchen, he wrapped his arms around my waist from behind and said, "You okay?" "Of course." He kissed my neck. "You're weirdly quiet. She's just very close to you." He chuckled, "Yeah, like siblings." "Are you actually related?" "Close enough." I turned to face him. "What does that mean?" He blinked. "Our parents grew up together. Her mom married my stepdad. We're not technically blood, but you know, it's that kind of family. Barbecues and birthdays and matching pajamas on Christmas." I nodded, trying to ignore the flicker of something that didn't quite settle. He touched my chin. "Don't go getting jealous. Jenna's Jenna, always has been." I didn't say anything, because what could I say? I wasn't the jealous type. I'd been cheated on before, and I swore I'd never be the kind of person who policed laughs or hugs or glances. But still, every year they took a trip together. Cousin's trip, he called it. Spring, same cabin, same lake, same photo pose, her sitting on the dock, him behind her with his arms slung casually across her shoulders. I saw the pictures once, scrolling through his Facebook when I was tagging myself in our own weekend photos. There were 4 years worth, always just the two of them. No group shots, no other cousins. I asked him about it once, teasingly. "Do the other cousins know they're not invited?" He grinned. "They're just jealous. Jenna and I started the tradition, everyone else flaked." He said it with such ease, like it wasn't weird. Like two adults, one of whom had a girlfriend, disappearing to a lakeside cabin every spring wasn't something to raise an eyebrow at. And maybe it wasn't. Maybe I was just seeing things, except I wasn't. I started noticing the playlists they shared, little details. He'd be in the shower and I'd hear a song I didn't recognize. "Jenna put me onto this," he'd say when I asked. Or, "We used to blast this on the way to school." There were private jokes, a nickname he only used with her, Birdie. I didn't know why. I asked once and he said, "It's dumb. She fell out of a tree when she was 10. She hated birds after that, it just stuck." It should have been funny, it wasn't. She texted a lot, not constant but frequent, screens that lit up during dinner, inside jokes I wasn't part of, memes that made him laugh while we were mid-conversation. I asked him one night, gently, "Do you think it's hard for people to believe you two aren't together?" He raised an eyebrow. "Whose people?" "I don't know, anyone's." He shrugged. "People think what they want, but come on, Soph, you really think I'd be dating my cousin?" I didn't answer, and maybe that was the first real moment. Not the hug, not the photos, not the playlists. It was the way he said that. Like the idea itself was stupid, like I was stupid. He laughed, pulled me into him, and said, "God, you're cute when you're overthinking." But I wasn't overthinking, I was noticing. And every time I noticed, he got better at pretending I hadn't. It happened by accident. He asked me to find an old resume on his laptop. He was applying for a project pitch, and I was already at home while he was running late from work. Just check the archive folder, he said. Should be under Docs 2019 or something like that. I wasn't snooping, I wasn't even curious, just trying to be helpful. But when I opened the folder, I didn't see anything about a resume. I saw subfolders, labeled by names, one for his college roommate, one for a freelance project, one that just said Jenna. I almost clicked past it. Almost. But I didn't, the folder wasn't locked. No password, no encryption, just a clean trail, emails, dozens of them. The subject lines hit me first, like bruises blooming under the skin before the pain fully lands. Final guest list. Venue deposit. Colors. Cake options thoughts. Bridesmaids update. Then one from Jenna, no subject line at all, just the body of the message in the preview. Still can't believe we're doing this. I love you, and I'll love you forever, even if no one else is allowed to know. I clicked it, I don't remember breathing while I read it. The date was from 5 years ago. She signed it J with a red heart emoji spelled out the way you would if you didn't want to leave a digital trail. They weren't cousins, they were engaged. I sat there in his office chair, surrounded by the quiet hum of his apartment, the fan creaking gently, the fridge kicking on in the kitchen, my own heartbeat louder than both. And suddenly every weird glance, every cabin photo, every shared playlist, it all reshuffled like puzzle pieces in the wrong box. They had planned a wedding, together. I opened more. There was a draft of their vows, hers was longer. His was bullet points, a timeline spreadsheet, save the dates, sent. Jenna's dress, pick up by March 10. No family invites until after announcement. One note in the corner, Birdie wants lilacs. It felt surreal. Like watching a film of your own life, but someone else is in your place. Someone who wasn't warned, someone who thought she was safe. I kept scrolling, a photo of a ring, gold, simple, elegant. Then another email, we can't tell them yet. Let's just be us a little longer. Please, no more pressure, just you and me like always. There was no screaming, no crying, just stillness. The kind of stillness that presses into your skin, makes your teeth ache, your vision slow. I closed the folder, left it as neat as I found it. Then I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water and stared at the cabinets. They were new. We'd picked them together 3 months ago, argued about off-white versus eggshell. He said I had the better eye. He'd said a lot of things. I took a sip. My hands didn't shake, because something colder had taken over. I replayed every interaction I'd ever had with Jenna, every laugh, every side glance. Every moment she looked at me like I was temporary and didn't know it. And now I did. They weren't related. They weren't history. They were a secret that had survived everything: distance, time, family, and me. I didn't confront him right away. I watched. That night, Jenna came over for dinner. Not a group hang, not a holiday, just her, Liam, and me. She brought a pie, set it down like it was tradition. Wore a soft green sweater that looked suspiciously like one of his. Kissed him on the cheek when she walked in. I had to stop myself from flinching. He barely reacted. Just smiled, took the pie and said, "Birdie, you didn't have to." Birdie. I set the table, 3 places. Jenna offered to help, but not like a guest would. Like she lived here. Like this was her kitchen once and she still knew where the forks were. Dinner was lamb stew, Liam's favorite. I'd made it the night before the discovery, before the bottom dropped out. The smell alone made my stomach churn now. We sat. She took the seat next to him, not across. She didn't ask. She never asked. They talked easily about music. An inside joke from a Spotify playlist. A radio DJ they both hated. A story about a road trip I wasn't part of. I listened, nodding, chewing, swallowing air with my food. I wasn't jealous, not anymore. I was gathering evidence. She laughed, touched his arm twice, said my name once. "You're sweet, Sophie," she said after I offered her more wine. "He needs that." He didn't meet my eyes. But when he did look at her between sentences, between bites, it wasn't how you look at a cousin. It was history, something thick, something old, not forgotten, just disguised, dressed up in jokes and memories and shared desserts. I asked about the cabin trip, casually, like I was just making conversation. "You guys still doing that lake thing this year?" Jenna smiled. Of course, LJ already booked it. LJ, he hadn't told me that. He said we might go somewhere in May, mentioned the beach. Never said a word about the cabin. He caught my look and said quickly, "I didn't want to bore you with the details." "Right," I said. "Because family traditions aren't my thing." Neither of them laughed. After dinner, she offered to help clean up. I said no, smiled too wide, told her to take a night off. She lingered anyway, loaded 2 plates, knew where the garbage bags were. When she left, she hugged him first. Whispered something I didn't hear. He nodded. She hugged me too. This time she didn't say I was sweet, she just said, "Night." Then she was gone. He closed the door, turned to me. You okay? I smiled. Of course. Because I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to accuse. I was going to watch the lie walk circles around itself until it tripped, and fall it would. That night, after Jenna left and the house had gone quiet, I waited. We were in bed, he was scrolling, I was still. Then I asked, casually, lightly, like it was a question you'd ask in passing. What happened with your last engagement? He paused, not long, just enough. Then he said, it didn't work out. No details, no hesitation, no regret, just a clean, practiced answer. I nodded. Was she part of the family too? That's when he blinked once, slow, then he smiled, tight, polite. Let's not make things weird. Too late, I rolled to face him, resting my head on my palm like I was just curious, like I wasn't already staring at a ghost wearing his face. Why would that be weird? I asked. If she was just family, like Jenna is. He locked his phone, placed it on the nightstand. Sophie. That's all he said, my name with a warning folded inside it. I waited. He didn't say more, so I did. I saw the emails. A long pause. Then he asked, what emails? But he knew, I could see it in the way he reached for his phone again, even though there was nothing there to check. His fingers moved like they needed something to hold. You had a wedding planned, I said. Colors, guests. Vows. Still nothing, you were engaged to Jenna. He exhaled, not shocked, not guilty, just tired. I wasn't trying to hide it, he said. I laughed once, quietly. You labeled the folder with her name. Of course you were trying to hide it. He sat up, rubbed his face. We called it off years ago. But you never told me. Because it didn't matter. It mattered enough to still call her Birdie, to still go to the lake. To still... He cut me off, she's part of my life. No, I said, she's still in it. He didn't argue, and that told me everything. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't ask why, because the why didn't matter. The why was already sitting in my dining room an hour ago, eating lamb stew and smiling like she hadn't almost married the man beside me. The why wore his sweaters and knew where I kept the wine glasses. The why was the reason he never made space for me in that part of his past, so I nodded, I lay back down, turned off the light, and said nothing else. But in my head I was already packing the next move. I dug deeper. Not out of revenge, not even out of anger, just necessity. I needed to see how far the lie stretched. I went back to the laptop, waited until he left for work, slid into the chair like I belonged there, opened the archive folder again. This time I looked for anything that hinted at permanence, and I found it, buried inside the email thread, one link, an old wedding website. The kind couples build and then forget about, floating quietly in some outdated server like a fossil. The link was dead at first, redirected, but I checked the source, found the original address. Tried a few password guesses, anniversary dates, pet names, cabin names. None worked. Then I tried Jenna's birthday. It opened. A banner loaded first, stretched across the top of the page in faded cursive. It's always been us. I stared at it. That sentence, so soft, so final, made my stomach turn. Photos loaded next. A black and white engagement shoot, her head on his shoulder, his hand on her thigh. Then the blog section. There was a post titled, "Private for now, but still ours." She wrote it, her voice was clear. Some love isn't ready for the world, not because it's wrong, but because the world won't understand. What matters is us, our truth, our future. Then a photo of the venue, a lake, same dock, same cabin in the background. They were already calling it theirs. There was an FAQ page. Are you related? Not by blood, just by fate. I clicked back, scrolled down to the bottom. Her last name, Hartman, same as Liam's, but it hadn't always been. I remembered something he once told me casually over brunch when I asked about his parents. My mom remarried when I was 15, he said. He's chill, has a daughter, she and I didn't really grow up together. He'd said it like it didn't matter, but that was her, Jenna, not a cousin, not even just a friend, his stepsister. The love they buried had roots, because someone married someone else and that paper made their relationship complicated, not impossible, just secret. And now, 5 years later, that secret was still living in my apartment, wearing old sweaters, laughing at my jokes, sitting on the couch like she had history carved into the cushions. I didn't cry, I copied the link, emailed it to myself, took screenshots of every page, every date, every guest list. And then I sat very still, with my laptop screen glowing in front of me, and whispered aloud. It was never over, because something that broken doesn't stay buried by accident, it gets buried by choice. And now I had choices too. I screenshotted everything, Not in panic, not in rage, in silence. Click, save. Each image felt like sealing a box, one that could never be reopened without consequences. The vows, the photos, the wedding blog. But I only printed one page, just one, the RSVP list. It was at the bottom of the guest info tab, half finished, no frills. But the words were clear, confirmed 87 guests. No family on his side, not yet. No family, not yet. I stared at that line for a long time. The timestamp said April 14, 5 years ago, a month before the ceremony that never happened. I didn't know who wrote the line, Jenna or Liam, but it didn't matter. The plan was real, the hesitation was real, the lie had a start date, and if I had let it go, it would have had no end. I folded the printed sheet, tucked it into a blank envelope, and slid it under my mattress. It wasn't time to use it, not yet. Instead, I started paying attention. To how Jenna lingered when she hugged him goodbye, to how Liam flinched when my phone buzzed, even though he swore he trusted me. To how they never spoke about their family, outside of each other, no group chats, no shared relatives, no real connections beyond the story they repeated like a script. And I noticed how much they relied on my silence to keep the story smooth. But silence is currency, and I'd been paying too long without a receipt. I started marking moments in my notes app, dates, times, comments, interactions. How many times Jenna texted in a day, how often Liam deleted his call history. It felt cold, paranoid, but it was none of those things, it was necessary. Because when someone builds a lie that elaborate, they don't dismantle it themselves. You have to draw the blueprint, you have to lay the detonator, and you have to wait. I waited 5 more days. Then Sunday came, dinner with Liam's family, his mother, his stepdad, his cousin Mark, his Aunt Yvonne, and Jenna. She brought dessert again. They smiled when she walked in. She smiled back like she belonged. And I smiled too, because I had the envelope in my bag, and I wasn't going to raise my voice. I was going to raise the curtain. His parents hosted Sunday dinner like they always did, warm lights, too much food, chairs that creaked when you leaned too far back. The table was long, mismatched plates stacked in sets of 8, cloth napkins that didn't match either but somehow made the whole thing feel intentional. Jenna was already there when we arrived. She was in the kitchen with his mother, laughing over the lemon glaze she was adding to a bundt cake. I walked in behind Liam and saw her reach for the oven mitts like it was her house. She glanced over her shoulder, smiled, and said, "Perfect timing." I said nothing. Liam kissed his mother's cheek, called her Ma, greeted Jenna with a "Hey, Birdie." She handed him the mitts like it was a passing of something sacred. We ate. Pasta, garlic bread, wine. The conversation swirled like it always did, half gossip, half memory. I stayed quiet, observing, counting. Jenna sat to Liam's left, I was to his right. I watched their elbows brush. I watched her hand linger on his arm when she laughed. I watched him pour her a second glass before offering me one. His cousin Mark made a joke about dating disasters, and someone asked Jenna if she was still seeing that guy, the one with the motorcycle and too much cologne. She smiled over her glass and said, "Still deciding if he's serious." There was a pause, a chuckle. Then his mother, bless her, leaned forward and said, "As long as he treats you better than the last one." Liam stiffened. Jenna gave a tight smile. That was a long time ago. And I said calmly, almost lazily, like it just floated into my mind in the moment, "What color was your wedding going to be?" The entire room paused. You could have heard the knife drop. Literally. Mark froze with his fork midair. His mother blinked. Liam didn't move. Jenna's wine glass stopped halfway to her mouth. Slowly, she looked at me. I looked back. "Lilacs, right?" I said, tilting my head. Or was that just the flowers? Liam cleared his throat. "Sophie." I didn't look at him. I looked at her. "It's weird," I said, swirling my wine. "How many details people forget, but some things stick, like lilacs. And the way you two used to call each other LJ and Birdie, even in RSVP emails." His stepdad, who hadn't said a word all evening, put his glass down a little harder than necessary. "That's not funny," he said. And I said, still looking at Jenna, "Neither is lying to your family for 5 years." Then I reached into my bag, pulled out the envelope, laid it on the table, next to my engagement ring. Nobody moved, not even the candle flames. I didn't explain, didn't point, didn't cry, just looked at the RSVP list, then at Jenna, then at Liam, and I waited. Jenna stared at me like she was still waiting for the punchline, but there wasn't one. Just the RSVP list, sitting there between the wine glasses and the half-finished plates. Her name, his name, a line that read "No family" on his side. Not yet. In faded print. The kind of line you write when you're hoping to convince yourself that someday, everyone else will understand the thing you're too ashamed to name. Liam's fork stopped midair. He didn't put it down, he just froze. Like maybe if he stayed perfectly still, none of it would move forward. His stepdad's face turned a shade darker, and Jenna blinked, once, then twice. She glanced at the RSVP list like she didn't recognize it. Like it hadn't been printed from a wedding she helped plan. The ring beside it glittered under the dining room lights. That was the moment it shifted. That was the moment they realized this wasn't just a personal issue. It was public. Right here in front of his mother, his stepdad, his cousin, his aunt. The very people they'd left off that guest list because they'd agreed, no family until the secret was safe. I spoke quietly. No edge, no emotion, just clarity. You weren't cousins, you were engaged. You planned a wedding at the lake, you picked lilacs, you wrote vows, and then you ended it. Or hid it. I'm not sure which, but you kept it buried. Liam finally put his fork down. Sophie. I held up a hand. You had chances, so many, I asked, I gave you exits, and you chose to lie to both of us. Jenna's voice cracked for the first time. It wasn't like that. I turned to her, no. You just let me sit across from you, week after week, smiling like you didn't already try on the ring I'm wearing. Gasps were too polite for what happened next. It was more like the entire room sucked in the same breath and forgot how to let it out. Liam's mother whispered, you were what? Jenna stood, it was a long time ago. Then why is the website still up? I asked. Why was the password still your birthday? Jenna didn't answer, and poor, panicked Liam stood up too. It's over, he said like he could still control it, but the ring was still on the table, and the truth was out of his hands. His aunt pushed her chair back, slowly. I think I need some air. His mother said nothing. His stepdad stared at the RSVP page like it had just turned his dinner to ash. I stood, picked up my purse, left the ring where it was. I won't be part of a lie that treats love like it's a secret to be managed. No one stopped me. Not even him. Liam followed me out, didn't even grab his jacket. Just came after me barefoot on the porch, calling my name like it still had value. Like he hadn't just burned it down in front of everyone we both knew. Sophie, wait, please. I kept walking, he caught up, breathless. You didn't have to do that. I turned slow and sharp, didn't have to tell the truth. He ran a hand through his hair, not like that. Not in front of them. Oh, I'm sorry, I said, voice cool. Were the lies supposed to stay plated with the pasta and passed around like family tradition? He exhaled. We buried it for a reason, it was a mistake. We agreed it was a mistake. You didn't bury it, I said, he blinked. You put it at the head of the table. That stopped him, I could see it, the moment the words landed. The crack they opened behind his eyes. His hands dropped to his sides, helpless. I didn't know how to tell you, he said. You didn't want to. I was ashamed. I raised an eyebrow, of the lie. He didn't answer. We stood there, porch light buzzing above, wind threading through the hedges, silence thick between us. He stepped closer. I love you. I almost laughed. You love a clean slate, I was your do-over. Your rewrite. That's not true. Then tell me this, Liam, did you ever plan to tell me? Ever? His mouth opened, closed. Exactly. I walked past him, he turned after me. Sophie, don't make this public, don't let them. I stopped. Looked back, you already made it public, I said. The moment you sat her next to me, smiled like she hadn't written you vows and asked me to toast to forever. He didn't follow me after that. He just stood there on the edge of his family's lawn, barefoot and exposed, while I got into my car. I didn't slam the door, didn't speed off. I drove like someone who knew exactly where she was going. Jenna sent me one message. Just one. It came the next morning while I was sitting on the floor of my apartment, sorting through a half-packed suitcase and the rest of my patience. No subject line, just a single sentence. You didn't have to humiliate us. I stared at it, not long, not angrily, just enough. Then I opened the folder I'd created the night I found the truth. The one titled Hartman, like a case file waiting for trial. I selected one email, just one, her words 5 years old. We'll be each other's secret, even if it means rewriting our families. I hit forward, no message, no commentary, no signature, just her own voice returned. 5 minutes later, she read it. 10 minutes after that, she blocked me. No reply, no apology, no second attempt, and that was it. That's how the thread ended, not with another lie, not with a plea, just silence. The kind that isn't peace. The kind that's finally deserved, because I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to defend telling the truth in a room full of people they built the lie around. I didn't need a comeback. I had a receipt. And when someone hands you a rewritten history, the least you can do is send it back. People asked why we broke up. Coworkers, old friends. Liam's cousin Mark in a text that ended with, "Honestly, good on you." I didn't give them the whole story. I didn't need to, I said. Sometimes the past isn't past. It's just disguised in matching t-shirts and family stories. They'd nod, some understood, most didn't, but that line was enough. Because what do you say when the truth sounds like gossip? When he used to be engaged to his stepsister, lands more like a headline than a fact, I let the silence do its job. And when someone tilted their head and asked if I meant Jenna, I'd smile. That polite, measured smile you give when someone's finally catching up. Sometimes the lie, I said once, calls itself cousin. It wasn't petty. It wasn't cruel, it was the truth, compressed. And the truth, once compressed, carries weight. They had their story crafted in laughter and subtle glances and cabin traditions that never made sense. And I had mine, short, sharp, unshakable. Because when people lie with a straight face for 5 years, they don't get to rewrite the ending. Not after I saw the first draft. I kept the RSVP list, framed it. Hung it next to my door, right by the keys where the light hits it every morning. Not out of spite, out of warning. The paper looks ordinary to anyone else. Just lines of names, numbers, one note in faded text. No family on his side, not yet. But I see more when I look at it. I see the lie. How it dressed itself up in traditions and holidays and matching nicknames. I see how obsession doesn't always show up with roses and screaming fights. Sometimes it comes in familiar sweaters and second servings, and the word cousin used too casually, too often. I see how easily we give people the benefit of the doubt just because they say family. As if blood excuses everything. As if shared childhoods can bleach out secrets. I don't hang it to remember the pain. I hang it to remember the pattern. Because next time someone calls their ex a family friend, next time someone talks about tradition like it's a shield, next time someone says the wedding didn't happen but forgets to say they were the groom, I'll ask better questions. I'll see the signs earlier. And I'll know what color the wedding was. Before I RSVP. Thank you for watching. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I love you all.